Good morning and welcome to Crop Hour today. This is the final day of Small Grains Week. So next week we are switching over to Soil Health Week. So if you're interested in that topic, make sure you go online and sign up for next week. We're glad to have you on today, and hopefully the weather straightens out. It's been really nice, but it's extremely foggy where I'm at. So I hope you're safe wherever you are and can see. Just a couple reminders that you can use the Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen or the chat to ask questions to our speakers today, and we'll try to address them at the end of their topic time. Our first speaker this morning is David Karki, and David is our agronomy field specialist. He is located up in the Watertown office, so many of you might be familiar with David. And this morning, he is going to talk to us about the effects of PGR and nitrogen application on oat performance in South Dakota. I know David has done a lot of oat research and oat trials during his time with SDSU, and I think this will be a really interesting talk with some good applied research on it. So without further ado, David, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sarah, for that nice introduction. And let me share my slide, and we'll get it rolling. Good morning again. So like Sarah said, I'm David Karki. I'm working as an extension field specialist for SDSU Extension for about 10 years now, 9.5 years. And in the last couple of years, I also have started managing at the Northeast Research Farm by South Shore, which is about 15 miles north from where I'm stationed at. So today, I know it's a small grains week, and most of the topics covered so far in the last couple of days have been mostly wheat. But today we're going to kind of switch gear and talk about something that's been overlooked in my in my view by a lot of folks, and we'll talk about oats. And I know we have heard about oats, and we have talked about oats, but mostly, with other small grains that we grow, not stand alone as an agronomy topic. So a couple of things we'll talk about is the PGR and nitrogen application on oats and how they have done in South Dakota in the last few years. So quick overview of oats, what's planted and what's harvested and what's grown in South Dakota. And South Dakota is considered as one of the oat growing states in the nation for grain, of course. And looking at this graph, I have blue as planted acres, and the orange I see as orange. I think hopefully you see as orange too. Orange is the acres that's been harvested each year in the last 9 years, starting in 2015. And each year is different, but more or less, you can say that, 2015 been a good year for us, and 2020 has been a good year for us. And in 2020, actually, we're the number one in the nation for total production of grain oats in the nation. And you look at last year, and even 2021. We suffered quite a bit in terms of not only oats, but all the small grains that we have grown in South Dakota because of the weather and how it changed. The different heat stress and drought stress came, through the oat growing time period in oats life cycle. And a lot of oats that's not harvested for grain, that gap that you see in between these two lines, we can assume that it's been, planted for forages and other needs in the farm. And more or less, if you average all together, I would say 250, 260,000 acres planted and about 40% harvested for grain in South Dakota. And other major states have been, Minnesota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, a lot of cooler region in the country. But Iowa has been produced comparable bushels in last few years, so it's growing in Iowa as well. And this data that I kind of took to get this graph plotted is taken from USDA NASS survey. And quick snapshot of what we have on our website and SDSU extension website. Excuse me. So this is a screenshot of one of our web pages on our website. Variety selection is a very important aspect of crop production in any crops. And you can see some of the location that's been done by crop performance testing, and they have tested oats in different places in the state. You can see on the map as a star markers there. And this is a snapshot of yield summary for the eastern region. And I have only put, just to kind of bring it to your notice, that I've only put that in as a for the yield table, but you can also go to our website, which is underneath as a URL. You can go to our website and get the little more detailed version of these tables and maps. And you can even get the other traits like disease tolerance and grain quality and lodging and maturity and all that stuff too, not only yield. And some of the important in-season management, we all do that in all crops. We like to manage our weeds, we like to manage our diseases, and we like to manage our fertilizer regimen. But I've intentionally put that out in this slide because we're going to talk about fertilizer, especially nitrogen, in later slides. So quick note on weeds, something to think about is not all. A lot of the chemicals for weed control is labeled for both wheat and oats, but there are some which is only labeled for wheat, so not all of them are safe on oats. And disease-wise, crown rust I would consider as the most damaging disease or the pathogen, and fungicides that are applied. A lot of the oat growers apply fungicide as a standard practice, which has to be done in flag leaf stage. That's critical. Timing is critical. And barley yellow dwarf virus we see once in a while, and which is vector by cereal aphids. And something that came in last, I would say 5, 6, 7 years is how about PGR, or the plant growth regulator? And that's what we're going to talk about in next few slides. So plant growth regulator, PGR, and this is something that I got very attracted to because oat is one of those small grain crops that lodges more often than other wheat and other stuff we grow, and it helps to strengthen stem and shorten the plant height and decrease lodging. So when you decrease lodging, you are actually saving or gaining advantage on the yield, or preventing harvest loss. And also, you're also, if you're worried about the seed quality, that also helps with the seed quality if the plant doesn't lodge. And we all know large fields can lose significant amount of yield and delay your harvest and reduce grain quality. And the PGR, or the plant growth regulator product that we've used in our plots, is called something called Palisade EC, which is by Syngenta. And here's a snapshot of their label. And labels are long and detailed, but I thought this table kind of gives you a snapshot of what it is. So it's labeled for all small grains that we grow in the state. Wheat, both winter, spring, durum wheat, and barley, oats, rye, triticale. And I thought, it makes more sense to apply something like this in oats, which tends to lodge more. And generally, and the label rate is anywhere from 10.5 ounces to 14.5, 14.4 ounces as a single application or double application, but you can't go above 14.4 even if you're doing 2 applications or more than 1 application. And the growth stage that this is labeled for is anywhere from, and something to like about this product is growth stage is kind of wide, so you still have time. If you miss the first stage, you can go the next stage of the crop. So Ficus growth stage 7, would be the latest you can apply, and then Ficus growth stage 4, which is when the stems are, when you go to the field, and if you see all the tillers are strong, and also that's the all the tillers are formed and strong, that's your Ficus 4 growth stage. And Ficus 7 is when the nodes are forming. I would say Ficus 7, even second node, when you see the second node in the plant, that would be the Ficus 7. And so that's the range and the window that you should go and apply this product. So we're looking at time time of the season. Every season is different because of the heat units mostly. Anywhere from mid-May to about mid-June, you almost have a month window to apply this PGR. So we did a trial because we didn't know back in the, I started in extension 2014. We wanted to try this in, 2015-16 growing season. And we didn't know all the literatures, all the documents out there were for wheat. And so we thought, oats a little different than wheat, of course. And we tried an oats and didn't really work the way we thought it would. So we did a Palisade, our PGR Palisade doses and timing study, one location in each year in 2017 at the Farmer Cooperators Field and 2018 at the Southeast Research Farm by Beresford, and the 2017 was Garrett's in South Dakota. So I have I sorted this table with height. So you see the tallest plot on the top, and then go to the shortest plot on the bottom, and each number is the average of 3 replicates we had this for trial. So F stands for fecus growth stage, and 5, 6, 7 is the growth stage. So you have control as the tallest plant crop height, of course, and then you go all the way up to 23 inches to 37 inches tall to all the way down to 23 inches in 2017 in Garrettson. In 2018, the height range was anywhere from 29 inches to 40 inches in Beresford. And both years we used Hayden variety. And on the yield column, you see this, oh, I did something wrong here. So reds are the highest yielder, and then the blue one is the lowest yielder in the yield column. So 14.5 ounces applied at fecus 7 yielded about 136 bushel in Garrettson 2017. And when you apply the same amount in fecus 5, the earliest growth stage we applied is about 110 bushel. And I don't know, it's due to the application of PGR itself, because there is no lodging in both years. And there are a bunch of different numbers in between 110 and 136. You can see this here. And also in 2018, we had a lot drier year in 2018. And May was hot, so yield was a little lower for all the plots. 116 was the highest, 90 was the lowest, and the height ranged from 29 inches to 40 inches for the same variety. And then we did this 21 ounces, you can see, which is off label. We don't recommend you to do that. We did that for just research what happens if we increase it, go beyond the label rate and apply at something like F7. Do we see any grain quality effects or negative effects on anything agronomically? That's what we were after. And here's a plot. I don't know, you can see well. So I have this dashed black line on a picture on the top, and so here is our 21 ounces at F7, and here's a control. So we saw about 1.5 foot difference in Garrettson, and that's the same plot taking a picture in a different angle on the bottom. That's how it looked when it matured. So conclusion that from those 2 years, I would say there wasn't any lodging notice, so we couldn't really see the effect of PGR on lodging itself, but the plant height was difference there. And 2018 was really delay planting, and because of the heat we had in May, the plant grew so fast that we could barely keep up with the F5s and F6 and F7s growth stages, but we did our best. And beyond, prior to this study and then after this study, we have used PGR in different plots and growers field and strip trials and things, and concluding everything together, I would say, F6 or the first node when you see at the soil surface would be probably the ideal time, and go with a higher label rate, about 12 to 14 ounces per acre would be ideal to shorten your height and prevent any lodging you may have seen in your field. So now we're going to move, shift gear and then move into nutrient management and current recommendation, what we have for oats, especially for nitrogen recommendation. You may see a poll, launched in right now here on your screen, but we'll kind of go through, if you can take a moment and answer that poll, but I'll kind of keep talking, some of this recommendation which you may already have seen on the EC 750. We call our recommendation guide that we have, the book, and we also have PDF version online. So if you have looked on that book for any other recommendation, fertilizer recommendation on any other crop, you might have, stumbled upon this table before. And so our current recommendation for so it's all, obviously a yield goal based recommendation. So you see something in my red square or rectangle here. You have your yield goal and you have your nitrogen recommendation, which is on this book, which was updated in 2005, which was a long time ago. So to produce about 100 bushel wheat, you need about 130 pounds of actual N. So that's about 1.3 pounds of N per bushel of grain. And this is, applied plus the soil. And if you have any legume, you all together, it'll be about 1.3. So here's our current recommendation equation. Nitrogen fertilizer rate, 1.3 times yield goal. And then you subtract your soil test nitrogen, residual N in your soil, and then also subtract any legume credit you have. So that's our equation. And so we started this study, in 2016. And because we know that there are a lot of growers, oat growers out there who don't apply as much nitrogen as the book says which you should, and still doing great, without any agronomic, negative impact of any kind of agronomic management. So we thought maybe we should revisit this calibration. And we did. And like I said, I was kind of mystified, attracted, whatever you want to say with this plant growth regulator thing, and I wanted to apply an oats. So how about, apply that? And by the way, the poll came, a lot of you, replied as 50 to 100 pounds of N, which is what I was thinking, which is good. And so you're not applying 1.3 like we're saying it here. And so we wanted to apply plant growth regulator as added variable on top of nitrogen. Maybe we can push nitrogen a little without, and then and shorten the height and prevent lodging that way, because we know that if you push in nitrogen, plants lodge. And so started in 2016 and 2017 at the Northeast Research Farm here, by Watertown. And we use pre-plant as urea, 20, 40, 60, 100, 140 pounds of nitrogen. And then also with the control plot. And in each nitrogen plot, we're divided into half. And then one half got the Palisade or PGR, and the other half didn't. And we wanted to look at, the differences that PGR would show, or any effects that it will show on the plots. And in both years, we saw significant yield response to applied N, but no response to PGR, not even in height or lodging. So that was a little bit of, contrary to what we're expecting. But in 2018, we had additional resources, and I would like to extend, my thanks to South Dakota Nutrient Research and Education Council. We got some funding, so we expanded this research not from just one location 1 year to multiple locations for multiple years. So 2016, when we had just one location at the Northeast Farm, you can see, we had horsepower as a variety we used, and highest yielding was 157 bushel, which we got there with 120 pounds nitrogen. So if you do the ratio of yield to applied N, it comes to about, 0.76 pounds of N, for a bushel of grain. And we got 160 bushel of grain with 140 pounds of N. So there is no gain, applying N in this case, after about 120 pounds. And you can see that on the plotted graph also. And there's no effects of plant growth regulator on plant height. And when we applied the PGR at early stage, I would say, and we tank mix with Bronate, and we applied really early, mid-May at Fix 4 to 5 growth stage. And same at, and the same location, different year, a little lesser yield overall because of the growing conditions. But again, we didn't see any effects of PGR on plant height or the lodging. And we applied at, early stage. So we changed our plan a little. So we moved into 2018 with a little more resources, but the graph I'm just showing you the Northeast Farm because because of the lack of time here today. So we used Hayden variety, and then we saw the highest yield on control plot. That's we didn't apply any N on that plot, and everything was applied. PGR was applied at F6, which is first node stage, and Palisade treated plots yielded generally better. I wouldn't say significantly, statistically significant, but we got the 159 bushel oats with 96 pounds of N, which was a pre-trial or the control plot. We had 40 pounds, credit for soybean, preceding soybean crop, and then rest of the N was in soil. So for in this case, about 1/6 of a pound N needed for a bushel of grain. And height, in the same year in 2018 at the Northeast Farm, we saw a significant height difference between the Palisade treated versus no non-Palisade plots, and I think it's because of in 2016 and 17 we didn't see any height effect on by PGR, but 2018 we saw, and 2018 onwards we started seeing this. I think although some of the literature we saw on wheat were having good effects of PGR and reducing height on wheat, but on oats somehow it needed to go a little later as a single application, so we couldn't really go early with herbicide mixed herbicide or mixed tank mixed herbicide. So that's what that's our conclusion anyways. So in 2019, Northeast Farm again, kind of like a different, we had some effect of nitrogen there. After about this point, we didn't gain much to justify that added N. And pre-trial N, again, about 80 pounds, and highest yield 118 was observed for 40 pounds N. So, which was, about here, right here, 120 total. And after that, the graph just flattens out. And here is 2020, at different cooperators field where we didn't have any Palisade, just the N treatments we had. And, you have Chamberlain, you have gray ones are Garrettson, and then the blue one is Aurora. But in all case, we didn't see anything we usually see for typical nitrogen graph or nitrogen, trial. So this is soil applied. It's not total. So you have zeros as the checks, producing about 80 bushel, and then, they're not really increasing to justify any additional. So in a lot of times your zero or the control or the lower side of application rates, I would say 0, 20, or 40 is producing enough grain oats that we can't really justify adding anything beyond that. And each field had a different pre-trial nitrogen in there. I'll show you what the overall was. In next slide, I have a graph I have plotted it all together. I had about 90 plots. So another thing with applying something unusual or something new, we do grow oats for food grade quality, or we like the grain quality up to the mark to market it for food as a food grade grain. So we sent our samples to General Mills, and they did their standard, grain analysis. They usually do on their plots. And in some cases, N rate showed some significant effects on protein content, which is, if you add more N, you're adding more to the amino acid, and then hence, your N sometimes, protein increases, but not very significant. Only in 2 locations we tried in 2018, and other parameters used. Measured didn't have anything significantly affected by the treatments used. That is, both N rate and plant growth regulator. And 3 years of data, 18, 19, and 20, we sent the samples, and we didn't see any. We see the similar results. There's no really, impact of having that extra PGR on the grain. So these are the grain quality parameters. That's the standard, then definition on the right, and then some of the, the abbreviated forms on the left of the screen you see. So all that being said, why, what did we learn? So here's the message. So this is from 2018, 19, 20, and 21. So 4 years of data from various different locations, 90 data points we have. And if you remember back, 2 years ago, and 23 was extremely dry also, and 2021 was dry, but I don't have 2023's data in here. And we didn't really see a relationship going either way. I mean, we were hoping to go this graph like this, and it kind of scatters all over the place and doesn't show a real good trend. And then if you look at the R square for both linear and the polynomial equation, it's about 3% relationship of, applied nitrogen and the yield we have, which is very strange in this case. And then part of it because we had all of the fields we used were in soybean stubble. So we had, quite, N in the field to be released from soybean residue, and also some, give or take, I throw this out 20-25 pounds of residual N. So we already have the 60-65 pounds of N. That's why we're not saying really a response of oats on higher applied N rates, like 100 pounds or 150. Anything beyond actual applied rate of 60 pounds or 40 above, we didn't see a whole lot of a response. And all of the check plots, every field was different in terms of how much N was there, before the trial started. So it ranged from 23 pounds of N to 96 pounds of N before the trial was established in these fields. And you can see, this could be 23 right here. And I have this ballpark, I'm just ballpark, eyeballing this line, red line. It's not anything, the computer didn't draw it. I drew myself. So somewhere around here, we can kind of see economical way of looking at things. After that, we're not gaining much total N of about, 100 pounds or 90 pounds, all together, including your soybean credit, including your soil residual N, and including what you applied. And that kind of, matches, IPNI recommendation. They say about, good growing conditions, after about 90, 100 pounds, you don't see a whole lot of response to added N on oats anyways. So that's what we saw. And 104 bushel was the average across, 4 years across all locations. And I found this, this kind of, I wouldn't say off track, but it's still something, oats is going for forages also. And I found a paper that's published, from Kansas, it's Western Kansas. They're doing something on similar on forage oats, not the PGR, but there's just the, soil applied, just on the fertilizer side of things. And they were after how, if they could see any effects on dry matter yield by seeding rates, different seeding rates, and also the applied N. The soil test N was about 20 pounds, and they added approximately 10. Of course, there was 0 also, and 10, 30, 50, and 70 pounds. And after about here, you don't see much difference. So about 70 pounds or 60 or 70, you have 60 pounds. So you add 20, well, about 90 pounds, I should say. 70 pounds of, so after about, for forage oats anyways, in Western Kansas, in this particular two years, 2015 and 16 data, they didn't see much response to this, beyond this point, which is about, 75 pounds, of actual N. So conclusion, the results we obtained so far shows that 1.3 is quite a bit higher than what we think would be useful for growing oats in South Dakota. I would say about 1/7 to 1/9 of a pound of actual N per bushel of grain. And we all know, I think Dr. Chris Graham also mentioned that yesterday on wheat, that more input, more fertilizer needed to produce the same amount of grain in stressful environment, drought and heat stress environments. We get in South Dakota. And PGR could be a useful tool for reducing height in lodging. And if you want to try something like this, please try in a small area in your farm, so that you're testing yourself and before going, totally on your bigger fields. And from these results, it's kind of safe to say that, current recommendation is in the higher, it's a lot likely, higher than required and needs recalibration. So I would like to acknowledge South Dakota Nutrient Research and Education Council for the funding for this N calibration project, and also would like to acknowledge, Anthony Bly and Peter Sexton for providing technical assistance and helping out in the project and overall project. And here's my contact information. If you have any questions, there's my email, office phone number, cell phone number, whichever is convenient, for you. And these are some of the, federal statements we are required to show when we do our presentations.
Well, thanks, David. That's some really interesting local data. You do have a question so far from Van. What is the cost of plant growth regulator application at 14.4 ounces? Do you have any cost analysis on that?
Yep. Well, yes and no both. The jug I bought, man, it's been because I use in a smaller amount and it's been with me for a number of years now. But if I go off of what I paid for that jug, I would say about $1 an ounce. And there's another information I found about, Palisade by Syngenta. I think they have come up with a different name of the same ingredient, but the higher amount. So you probably have to apply less. So I don't know the cost of that. It's a brand new product called Modus, Moddus. We can visit later. I can look for more information, but it's the same product, same active ingredients, but a little more concentrated form. So instead of applying 10.5 to 14.4 ounces, you might have to apply, 7 or 6 ounce per acre. But I don't know the cost of that though.
Might depend on your area too, but that
Right.
gives a general idea.
Yeah.
If there's any other questions for David, we have a minute here. You can throw them in the Q&A or the chat. In the meantime, we're going to launch our poll. This is just a quick couple questions that gives our presenters an idea of how we can improve our talks or what you liked or didn't like. Should just take a second. And I think while we are waiting to see if there's any other questions, we can go ahead and switch gears, David, if we want to
Here you go. I
have
stopped
Neal.
sharing my slide now.
Yep. Well, thanks, David. I think that was a great introduction, especially for folks who aren't familiar with PGR and what that means and how that interacts with your plants. And so we're going to continue on this topic and talk a little bit more about oats and other small grains. I'm going to turn it over to David as the moderator to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Sarah. It's hard being a moderator and a speaker at the same time, but thanks for the help. So our next speaker is Dr. Neal Foster. He's the director of South Dakota Crop Improvement Association, and this is kind of different in terms of we're not talking about just agronomy topics or any kind of inputs. It's more like what it means to certify your seed and what it means about seed certification and what's and how it affects all of us, the growers, educators like me and the board itself. So Neal's gonna talk about seed certification in South Dakota, and welcome, Neal, and thank you for being a part of our Small Grains Week. And also on a note that if you think about any other question about oats, I'll be still sticking around. We can address that after Neal's presentation too. Go ahead, Neal.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. I can.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for showing up. I'm Neal Foster, the Executive Director of South Dakota Crop Improvement Association. And today we'll just kind of do an introduction to what seed certification is, how it works, and how it helps the state's growers. South Dakota Crop Improvement Association started out in 1906 as the South Dakota Corn Growers and Corn Breeders Association. And this was when hybrid corn was just getting started and they wanted a way to kind of help control it and maintain it. And then in 1909, they changed to the Corn Growers and Grain Growers because they thought This has worked a little bit for corn. We should start to use it for small grains. And then in 1925, they changed over again to what it is today as the South Dakota Crop Improvement Association. Why is seed certification is important? There's an old winter wheat variety called Turkey Red that originally came from the Ukraine-Russia region. It was first planted in Kansas in 1874, and by the 1890s, there were 20 plus names for Turkey Red. Certification, it helps when you purchase a seed. It's a known variety, it's a pure line, and there are minimal other crop and common weed seeds in the seed, and it is also free of noxious weeds. Seed certification is a limited generation system. There are 4 classes of seed: breeder, foundation, registered, and certified. And beyond certified, it's considered to be grain. The breeder seed is, after the breeder has made his crosses and selections and evaluations, we may have just a few pounds of seed. That is turned over to the foundation seed program where it is increased. It may take a year or 2 of increase before we have enough to release it to the certified seed growers. The seed grower will purchase foundation seed, he'll plant it, that becomes registered seed. They can either sell that as registered seed or replant it themselves for the following crop, and that produces certified seed. And the certified seed is what is generally sold to the public, to grain producers across the state. What does it take to be a member or to be in certification? First, you need to be a member. This is done by an individual seed grower, or now we require contract seed growers to be members. And the reason that we require the contract growers to be members is a few years ago, there was an unexpected death by one of the contractors for the seed growers. Well, the contracted seed growers couldn't have any access to their paperwork. So as a result of that, we decided to have the contract growers be members. That way they do have access to that paperwork. So if something like that does happen in the future, they do have access to that, so they can go ahead and complete certification on that seed. We also have the approved conditioner category of membership, and these are for the people that go around and condition seed. We usually try and inspect them once a year and approve them. These are either stationary cleaners or portable cleaners. Many of you on the farm site, the portable will come out, they'll set up, you'll clean the seed, and then be stored on site. We also have a bulk retail bulk sales facility category, and this is for a lot of the Integra wheat growers, places that have bin sites that don't want to deal with producing and cleaning the seed. They just want to purchase it clean and be able to sell it to their clientele. After you become a member and you have eligible seed to plant, you need to fill out a field application. We changed quite a few things where it's all on a computer-based system now. With the field applications, you'll go ahead and outline your field with the acres, submit the variety, the proof of seed, which is either a foundation seed tag or a seed test report, and then we'll review it. And if it's eligible, it gets approved. And at this point, we wait until it's field inspection time. Every June, we try and have a field inspector school. We've got about 20 plus inspectors scattered around the state, and these are retired county agents, retired ag teachers, or just individuals that are competent to inspect the fields. And most of these have done it for probably 30 plus years now. One of the things we look for when we go out and inspect the field is isolation. And this is to prevent cross-contamination from like crops. With crops like small grains, it's a 10-foot isolation strip. If you're producing seed and you have registered and certified fields that are abutting each other, lots of times what the grower will do is take that first swath out of the registered seed and combine it with his certified seed. And this is very permissible. With other crops like soybeans, there's still an isolation strip to prevent some of the cross pollination that can occur. When we walk the fields, we try and cover all parts of the field. We'll usually do kind of a zigzag pattern, and the inspector needs to be able to visibly see all the area of the field. When we're inspecting, we also do what's called sequential sampling. We look for off types, and the inspector will actually take plant counts and record the number of like talls or like awnless variety or an awnless head in wheat. And then it's all written down in the variety description, whether this is an off type in that crop or if it's a other variety. Again, we look for other crops. This is a slide of an oat field, and if you see in the middle, there's a head of barley coming up. We also look for inseparable other crops. In the case of winter wheat, if we find rye in that field is rejected from certification. I worked in Oklahoma for a couple of years, and this is one of the fields that I didn't have to inspect. It wasn't in certification, but it shows you how bad that contamination can get. With certified seed, it must be conditioned. It's got to be cleaned either by a grower conditioner. This is the seed grower that has his own cleaning apparatus. It can be done in a stationary cleaning plant or a portable cleaner. And this is to ensure that mechanical purity standards are met and that the limits for crop and weed seed are also met. After it's conditioned, it has to be tested. When it's tested, we check for the purity, we check the germination, we look for other crop seed, we look for other weed seed, noxious weed seed, and seeds per pound. And usually, with the case of wheat, we'll give a test weight and protein when it's sent in for that complete set of tests. One of the things with certified seed, when the seed analyst goes through the sample, there are requirements set down by AOSA, which is the Association of Official Seed Analysts, on the limits or on the weights that they have to look through. And in the case of wheat, they look through 100 grams for the purity, and that's to determine in pure seed, inert matter, crop seed percentage, and weed seed percentage. With the certified seed, usually it's a 2-pound sample we look through. And in that 2-pound sample, that analyst will pull out all the common weed seed, all the other crop seed, and all the noxious weed seed. And that gives the growers a better idea of how that conditioner is doing when he handles that seed. The seeds per pound is very important in that it helps you set your planting rate. The seed size varies greatly between varieties. It may be 10,000 or 12,000 seeds per pound on one variety, and it may be up to 20,000 seeds per pound on another. And it's important for you to know this when you're setting your planting rates in the field. The seed has to be labeled, and here's an example of a tag, and there's 14 points on this tag that need to be met in order to be a legal label. The first is the variety, and in this case, it's Russ hard red spring wheat, the pure seed percentage, the inert matter percentage, other crop seed percentage, weed seed percentage, and the germination percent. And if it's a crop like some of the native grasses or alfalfa, hard and or dormant seed is also on the tag. And then the total viable, which is your germination, plus your hard seed and plus your dormant seed. Or any combination. If it's alfalfa, it would be germination plus hard seed. If it was green needle grass, it would be germination plus dormant seed. If it was a crop like Sicer milk vetch, it would be germination plus hard seed plus dormant seed for your total viable. The noxious weed seed percentage must also be shown in the rate of occurrence. You also have to have your lot number, the name and address of the labeler, and if it's a PVP variety, there needs to be a PVP statement on that tag, the original where the seed was produced, in this case it's South Dakota, the date that the seed was tested. With the seed test, it's viable for the germination, or it's valid. The germination test is valid for 6 months out of state and 9 months in state, including the month that it was tested. If it's treated, you also have to have a statement on there of what it was treated with. After the testing and labeling is done, if the grower wants to sell the seed in bulk, he can go ahead and get onto log onto our computer system and use our bulk sales certificates. And this records everything that is required to be on the tag. Plus, it has the name of the buyer and the seller and the amount of seed that's been purchased. This helps greatly in our record keeping. It also helps the growers keep a running inventory of what they have available for sale. Now we'll talk a little bit about plant variety protection. Plant variety protection is set down in federal law and the federal by the USDA federal seed branch, and it helps provide the variety owners with protection and rights for their work. It's patent-like protection. It's not a patent, but it provides protection that's much like a patent. It's good for 20 years. Title V means that the variety can only be sold as a class certified seed. There's some companies that choose to plant variety protection their varieties, but not use Title V. And this gives them some leeway if they need to call in some other fields that may not have been eligible to start with for certification. We'll inspect them, considering they meet all the requirements, and then they can sell it. So it doesn't need to be certified in those cases. But you still need the owner or developer's permission to sell that seed. With all the varieties of spring wheat, winter wheat, and oats that SDSU releases, and most of the regional breeding programs that are within the universities, there's royalties on those varieties. With SDSU, the royalty on spring and winter wheat is 60 cents a bushel, and on oats, it's 30 cents a bushel. This comes out to about a penny a pound. The royalty is due at the point of first sale as a class certified seed, and the monies that we collect on these programs, the crop improvement reinvests back into those programs. And this is a great way to support those programs. You may not realize it, but when we purchase a little combine like this, it costs just as much as a big one, like in this case that you see in this picture. Over the years, we've helped update the winter wheat and spring wheat breeding programs and the oat programs with new combines. We've also helped with other equipment like tractors and planters that the programs have definite needs for to establish their plots and trials that they go through. We've also used our royalty to help purchase things like a protein testing machine, and this is the one that's located out at our West River Experiment Station. We also have another machine that's here in Brookings that the breeding programs use when they do their screening on the varieties as they're developed. Other things that the crop improvement has helped do with the funds raised from royalties is the purchase of land. In a lot of cases, since we're in a gray area between the university and being private, we can move at a fairly rapid pace when land comes up for sale. This is a picture of a quarter of land over by Volga, South Dakota that we purchased as a replacement for the tech park where the old agronomy farm was. It may not look like much in this picture, but it is a very good quarter. It is very uniform soil types, very level. It is very good for research. And then to help with the research, the crop improvement also went ahead and put up a building over there for storage. The building is set up where there are 3 bays. The 2 on the left-hand side are drive-through bays, and there's 2 projects in each bay. The south bay we use for basically large equipment storage over the winter. And we'll also have field days, and we'll do our inspector training in this bay. Many of you will want to know when I can sell a variety that has PVP. First, it has to be tested, labeled, and certified if it has Title V. And you have to have the owner's or the developer's permission. In the case of the certified seed, the Title V, that permission is basically granted when it goes through certification. If it is a Title V variety without, or if it is a PVP variety without Title V, you do have to have the owner's permission to sell that variety as seed. How can you determine if a variety has PVP? There are several tables in our certified seed directory that we print every year that lists the varieties and what type of plant variety protection they have. You can also go to our website, sdcrop.org, and look under the directory, or you can go to the USDA website, and that's listed here on the slide. This shows where in the South Dakota Crop Improvement Seed Directory, on the right-hand side, it lists the type of PVP that each variety has. In the case of beech and buff, there is no protection. In the case of colt, it has PVP 94 with Title V. The PVP 94, in 1994, the Plant Variety Protection Act was redone to eliminate some of the loopholes that allowed brown bagging of seed. We also have another table in our directory where it lists all the varieties that are in our program and the type of protection that each variety has. When can I use a variety that's got PVP? When it's purchased as certified seed. And with the plant variety protection, you can buy that seed, grow it, produce grain, but you can use that grain to replant on your old holdings indefinitely. Some examples of illegal seed sales are small grains, variety not stated or VNS. Virtually every variety of small grains that's released across the U.S. is named now. It's illegal to buy bin run seed out of the local elevator or from your neighbor to use as seed. You'll see things like 1 year off certification, a non-certified variety with PVP Title V that cannot be sold unless it is certified. If it's a name variety, it has to be sold by name. And it's illegal to sell grain for seeding purposes. And this includes grain or cover crops for forage or grazing. This is another field in Oklahoma that we basically certified winter wheat down there, and the winter wheat was either white chaff or red chaff. This is a producer that had gone to the elevator and bought illegal seed, and this is what his field ended up looking like. It's a mixture of red and white chaff. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions that you don't feel like asking today, please feel free to call or email. Is there any questions?
I have not seen any questions on Q&A or the chat box. So we still have a few minutes. So if you have any questions or if you can think of anything, please feel free to, put that in our Q&A section down there, or, call Neal. Or if you have any questions from the portion that I presented earlier, feel free to do that as well. In the meantime, and if you don't have any questions and you answer the poll questions, and if you scan your code for the credit that you were looking for, you're free to go, and we'll just meet again next week for the Soil Health Week. And also look in your inbox, there should be email coming through later this week about the evaluation or the survey for the overall week, the whole week, and your feedback is very valuable because that helps us down the road. Thank you again for being here this morning. And I do see a chat. Oh, it was from Sarah. So yeah, so thank you for being here this morning. And despite the nice weather you have out there, and thank you for taking time and being a part of the webinar series that we do.